Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to return to our conversation with Simon Dixon of BnkToTheFuture.com. Download their new wallet. The Bank to the Future wallet is available for download. You must download it right now. Simon, you look like you're stressing out down there in Cancun, Mexico.
Yeah, it's pretty painful being here, but it's been a great conference.
Talking about the Satoshi Roundtable, of course, and another fantastic conference. Bruce Fenton shooting the lights out as usual. Now, Simon, we were talking about the latest on Bitcoin. So what sort of developments are you looking for as an investor in this space going forward?
I'm still interested in anything that supports the adoption and the ecosystem of Bitcoin. And the exchanges have traditionally turned out to be our most profitable investment to date. We were in the early rounds with Kraken, Bitstamp, Bitfinex, BitPay, and Shapeshift, and many others. But really, we're looking at a two-tiered market now. The institutional side is definitely starting to take off. One of the things I got from this conference is speaking to many of the traditional largest institutional players, is that they see Bitcoin as the only thing that they can actually work with at the moment, which is a real shift from what we've seen. You know, originally these traditional institutions were trying to laugh and ridicule Bitcoin. Then they tried to replace it with their own blockchain and popularize the word blockchain. But now they're really doing a U-turn and building for Bitcoin as they want to get involved in launching their own cryptocurrency exchanges, their own Lightning channels for merchant adoption, and their own custodial solutions to allow people to actually onboard into the next wave of institutional products.
Yeah, you mentioned Kraken there. Holy mackerel, yeah. We both invested in Kraken back at the beginning of this company's when it was in the, millions of dollar valuation. They've announced a funding round in the multi-billions, which I guess you guys are involved with. And they also announced a $100 million purchase of a futures trading firm. Why is this good? And what does a futures trading platform deliver to this space, Simon?
Well, Kraken is able to now engage in both spot and futures markets, which allows people to do leverage, but they're also at the same time acquiring crypto facilities that have been through the rigorous process of getting regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. And the interesting thing to observe is that this is a US company that is actually not allowing the US customers to engage in their futures markets because there seems to be a lot of friction in the US at the moment around this industry. And my personal perspective on that is during this bear market, we have seen billions and billions of over-the-counter trading within the crypto market. And I believe that that is the financial institutions looking to position themselves as long on Bitcoin and then actually trying to gain some monopolistic power and use their normal crony capitalism in order to launch their own institutional crypto exchanges and launch, I guess, what they're probably seeing as the grown-up version. But at the same time, I still believe in the counter of people actually storing Bitcoin the way it was designed to be on their own hardware wallets and benefiting from the personal freedom of being able to spend your own money, store your own money without some of these large institutions. So we're having both, and the two are going to compete, and I think both markets are going to boom and do incredibly well.
Yeah, fascinating point there. To reiterate, so Kraken is a U.S. company, but U.S. customers can't use it because it appears as though there's a regulatory turf war, not necessarily to protect customers, but rather to carve out some space for some competition. So the regulators have a reputation of being what are known as captured regulators who work in the interest of business interest in corporations rather than the greater good. What I'm hearing is a description of that coming to the fore. But as you point out, that's not the way Bitcoin was designed. And so far, the Bitcoin black hole, as I describe it, has swallowed up all the bad actors and bad regulators and just continues to fight back against the banksters, as we call them. Now, let me continue. You are based in the Isle of Man. They're in the headlines with a new regulatory regime around crypto. Tell us about it.
Well, Isle of Man has always been trying to support the crypto industry. They were the world's first government. Max, you remember way back in, I think, 2013, 2014, when we went to the first conference that was organized by a government that were looking to support the crypto industry. The challenge was that at the time, the large banks just didn't want to support the industry. The small niche banks were happy to support the industry, but then the Isle of Man shares the Great British Pound currency. They have the Manx pound. They print their own note, but they clear through the Bank of England. And the Bank of England and the UK banking system have been particularly unsupportive of the crypto industry, trying to keep hold of their entrenched monopolies and get rid of any disruption in the central banking. So Isle of Man have, in the meantime, been looking at creating regulatory structures and trying to support the industry independent of the GBP clearing and the Bank of England's entrenched interest. And now they're coming back with their second wave of looking to become a bit of a blockchain hub. I hope that it's not too little too late because of their, the Bank of England trying to exercise their influence over the island. But they are an independent parliament. They do have their own Manx pound. And the market has moved on a lot since those 2013, 2014 days. And we'll do what we can to support the industry. And I hope that maybe they can print their own notes and then launch a GBP stablecoin as a combat, and then use Bitcoin maybe as some kind of collateral and a Bitcoin standard. There's only 85,000 of us on the island. And I think it would be a great little experiment in seeing if crypto can actually be used to actually disrupt some of the central banking cartels.
Right. Now, what about the legacy banking system? There are still needs for on-ramps and off-ramps from fiat banks, not necessarily helping out there, often refusing all crypto-related customers. Do you see that changing, or will new competitors put them out of business, Simon?
I see a big desire for smaller niche banks to actually get involved in this industry. We've seen that there are banks out there that actually do banking the way we thought it was meant to be done, where they are actually intermediaries between borrowers and lenders, and they see massive deposits in things like stable coins, like, for example, Tether and various other stable coins have billions of dollars behind them, and the banks are happy to compete for those deposits. The challenge is that the larger clearing banks that are cleared directly into central banking are the ones that are trying to hold on to their position of power, and they're exercising their influence over some of the smaller niche banks that want to support the industry. And therefore, at the central banking level is where we're seeing all the challenges, as opposed to the smaller niche banks that are looking to get into this industry. They're looking to support it. And they're looking, and many of these banks operate on a full reserve basis, where they're simply, receiving interest on deposits, and doing banking the way we actually thought it was going to be. It will be really interesting to see if this combination of Bitcoin as collateral, stable coins backed by fiat, and whether central banks can actually, whether we can create a competing financial system with some of the smaller niche banks. My fear is that the central banking cartel will certainly look to do everything they can to prevent this market. But beautifully, we have competing jurisdictions, and one country's monopolistic, cartel-like behavior is competing with another island that wants to do things in a different way. But we're just seeing that friction over time.
By the way, before I forget, congratulations. I was looking at the Bank to the Future website. I see you guys have put together something like $650 million worth of deals. When I think about the names that get mentioned most often in this space, Pantera, Digital Currency Group, Bank to the Future is really the leader, the pioneer, one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And it's all been done really as a Bitcoin maximalist. Someone who wrote the book, Bank to the Future, set the stage for this whole phenomenon to take place. So on that note, finally now, Simon, you were in Hong Kong for a while during the time that China was essentially controlling mining and were the biggest investors in ICOs and other crypto investments. What's the mood there now? Did you get wrecked? Did the government stop it all? What happened?
So I still spend a lot of time in Hong Kong. I'm going to be there next month. I'm speaking at a couple of conferences. You know, China is a very interesting part of the ecosystem. Hong Kong does host some of the largest companies in crypto, but Hong Kong is very much, you know, they like to keep their affairs quiet and just get on with business. China is a very different beast, however. Hong Kong and China are you know, very different economies. We were actually there in Shanghai during the time when they decided to shut down the Bitcoin exchanges. And China is really, really interested in blockchain without Bitcoin and using it as a way of exercising, controlling more data, taking away more privacy. And they want to get rid of any tokens so that they're not traded on exchanges. They just want to get the benefit of what they see as a database so that they can exercise more influence and control over their people. And they see a great demand. And I think there will be a great demand from governments to try and use blockchain as a way of actually, you know, getting more control over their people. And kind of they can fight against Bitcoin, this counterculture, and the friction, I'm sure, will continue. And none more, you know, do we see that in places like China, where, yeah, you know, they decided to fight against it in the strongest way.
Right. We have about 20 seconds. Care to guess what country might be the first to put Bitcoin in their strategic reserve, Simon?
I think it's going to be a small island first. I think we're going to have a game theoretical situation where the first central banks to start using Bitcoin as reserves and making a bet on the industry becoming, you know, moving to a Bitcoin standard. And they're going to be the main beneficiaries of this. And then there's going to be a game theory situation and a game of chicken where the last ones to adopt this will be the ones that have the most entrenched interest, which are the larger currencies like USD in America, GBP in Britain, and the euro.
Fair enough. Simon Dixon, thanks for coming on the Keiser Report.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Simon Dixon of Bank to the Future. Check out their website, download the wallet, or even buy Simon's book, Bank to the Future, that set the stage for this whole revolution, in my view. And if you want to catch us on Twitter, it's Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.